3 children have been shot.
Everybody says you sure were lucky. Well, I don't feel very lucky. I couldn't tie my damn shoes for about 2 months.
It was a quiet night in Springfield, Oregon, the kind of stillness that creeps into every home after midnight. But inside the emergency entrance of Mackenzie Willamette Hospital, chaos had arrived. At 10:48 p.m. on May 19, 1983, a red Nissan Pulsar raced into the hospital's parking lot. Behind the wheel was a young woman, barely in her late 20s, wide-eyed but eerily composed. She flung open the driver's side door, ran around the car and screamed, "Somebody just shot my kids!" In the back seat were 3 children, all shot at close range. Welcome to the crime documentary. 7-year-old Cheryl was already lifeless. 3-year-old Danny was paralyzed, barely clinging to life. And 8-year-old Christy, gasping for breath, had a bullet lodged near her heart. The woman behind the wheel was Elizabeth Diane Downs, a mother, a former letter carrier, and soon the most hated woman in America. Emergency teams rushed to stabilize the children, but something was strange. Doctors on scene noticed something off, not just with the wounds, but with the mother. Nurse, reenacted interview. I remember thinking, she didn't cry, not once, no panic, no desperation, just blank, like she was in a trance. Police were called in immediately, as is protocol for any child gunshot wound case. Officer Doug Welch, one of the first on the scene, later reported that Diane's behavior was odd, detached, like she was giving a weather report. Diane: "We were just driving, and this guy came out of nowhere. He wanted the car. I said no, and he shot us." A carjacking? In Springfield? In the middle of the night? On a quiet road? Something didn't feel right. Diane's story went like this. She'd taken her 3 kids for a late-night drive to sightsee. Somewhere along Old Mohawk Road, a man flagged her down. He had wild hair, she claimed, a bushy mustache. He demanded her car. When she refused, he shot the children, and 1 bullet grazed her arm. Then he ran off into the darkness. Detectives raised eyebrows. Why would a carjacker shoot 3 kids and not take the car? Why would he shoot children and leave the only witness alive? Why, after such a traumatic event, was Diane smiling? One investigator described her expression as disturbingly casual. Within hours, detectives were on Old Mohawk Road. No tire tracks, no footprints, no signs of struggle, no evidence of a bushy-haired man. Then came the ballistics. All the bullets had come from the same weapon, a .22 caliber handgun. Diane's ex-husband Steve told police, "Yeah, Diane used to own a .22 pistol, just like that. Not sure where it is now, though." When asked, Diane said she lost it, couldn't remember when or where. Convenient. Over the next few days, police questioned Diane repeatedly. Every time, her story became more peculiar. She couldn't remember key details. What the man looked like, what direction he ran, where exactly the shooting happened. But she could recall the radio playing a Duran Duran song. She smiled as she mentioned it. Hungry like the wolf. I remember thinking how ironic that was. You know, 'cause he was like a wolf too. Detectives were stunned. A mother recalling a pop song during the most traumatic moment of her life. Something wasn't adding up. The medical examiner's report arrived. 7-year-old Cheryl had been shot in the back, execution style. There were no defensive wounds, no struggle. The conclusion? She was sitting still, as if she knew her killer. As if she trusted them. In the days that followed, Diane made herself available to the media, constantly. But rather than plead for the capture of her children's shooter, she spoke mostly about herself. You can't replace children, but I still have my looks. I can have more. Yes, she actually said that. The country was horrified. As police scrambled to build a case, one witness slowly began to wake up. Diane Downs, 8 years old, barely survived a bullet to the chest. When she regained the ability to speak, doctors and investigators asked her one chilling question. "Who shot you, Christy?" Her answer would blow the entire case wide open. But that revelation we'll explore in details. In a twisted case filled with lies, betrayal, and unspeakable cruelty, the most damning evidence would come not from a gun, but from the tiny voice of a child. May 19, 1983. It was a quiet Thursday night in Springfield, Oregon. The sky was dark and the streets nearly empty. But inside Mackenzie Willamette Hospital, panic was about to erupt. A red Nissan Pulsar came screeching into the emergency entrance. Its horn blared, headlights flashing. A woman leapt out of the car, frantic, breathless, covered in blood. It was Diane Downs. In the back seat were her 3 children. All of them had been shot. 7-year-old Cheryl lay motionless, her tiny frame eerily still. 3-year-old Danny was gasping for air, his body limp. 8-year-old Christy was barely clinging to life. And Diane? Not a single scratch. Just a gunshot wound to her forearm. Clean. Superficial. Nurse. She wasn't acting like any mother I've ever seen. Calm. Even cold. While we were trying to save her kids, she was asking how her car was. Presenting. Medical staff worked frantically to stabilize the children. Cheryl was declared dead on arrival. Danny was paralyzed from the chest down. The bullet had severed his spinal cord. Christy had suffered a stroke as a result of blood loss and trauma. She couldn't speak, but somehow she was still alive. Police were called almost immediately. And Diane's story? It was chilling. She claimed that a bushy-haired stranger had flagged her down on a remote road. A carjacker, she said. He wanted her car. When she refused, he pulled a gun and opened fire on the children. Then, according to her, he shot her in the arm before she sped off to the hospital. But investigators were skeptical from the start. Diane's demeanor was off, detached, almost rehearsed. Detective Doug Welch, one of the first on the scene, later recalled. But discussion. She was crying, but there were no tears. And when we told her Cheryl had died, she didn't ask to see her, didn't even react. As her children fought for their lives, Diane Downs gave a detailed statement to police, smiling at times, even laughing. She described listening to Duran Duran on the radio while driving. She joked about her favorite songs. One officer later said she looked like she was enjoying the attention. The case had just begun, but already cracks were appearing in Diane's story. The supposed bushy-haired stranger? No evidence. The gun? Missing. Her arm wound? Too clean. Not consistent with a close-range struggle. And most troubling of all, she waited over 30 minutes to get help. Something wasn't right, and detectives knew it. The story Diane Downs told police that night of a shadowy stranger ambushing her and shooting her children was chilling. But as investigators began to peel back the layers, it quickly became clear nothing about her story added up. Detective Doug Welch and Sergeant Jim Stowers began retracing Diane's steps that night. They drove the exact rural route she claimed to have taken, Old Mohawk Road, a remote stretch outside Springfield with almost no streetlights. But no tire marks, no witnesses, no sign of a struggle, no bushy-haired stranger. They started with her car. The red Nissan Pulsar, now a crime scene, was thoroughly searched. Blood splatter told a different story than Diane's. All 3 children were shot inside the vehicle, but there was no blood on the driver's side door or steering wheel. How did Diane escape the same fate? How did she maneuver the car with such clean precision, if she'd been shot before driving? Then came the ballistics. The bullets retrieved from the children's bodies were .22 caliber, but the weapon was never found. Diane claimed she didn't own a gun, but police uncovered something strange.
We found unfired .22 caliber casings in her home in a box, and they matched the exact brand used in the shooting.
Even more damning, a former lover of Diane's told police that she did own a .22 caliber handgun, and he remembered seeing her handle it regularly. Meanwhile, her behavior kept raising eyebrows. The media had caught wind of the case, and Diane didn't shy away. In fact, she leaned into the spotlight. Just 3 days after the shooting, she gave her first TV interview.
Have been shot.
Everybody says you sure were lucky. Well, I don't feel very lucky. I couldn't tie my damn shoes for about 2 months. It is very painful. It is still painful. The scar is going to be there forever. I'm going to remember that night for the rest of my life, whether I want to or not. I don't think I was very lucky. I think my kids were lucky. If I had been shot the way they were, we all would have died.
The public was stunned. Her tone was cold, her logic warped, and the question everyone asked, why would a mother shoot her own children? Investigators soon got a lead on motive. At the time of the shooting, Diane was involved in a volatile affair with a married man, a co-worker at the U.S. Postal Service. His name? Robert Nick Knickerbocker. And he didn't want kids. Nick had made it clear. He wouldn't leave his wife for Diane, and he wanted nothing to do with her children. In a series of letters investigators recovered from Diane's home, she obsessed over him, writing about how the kids were in the way. I'm not saying I don't love them, but they make things complicated. Nick wants a life. I want that too. Chilling. The theory came into focus. Diane believed that without her children, she could finally have the man she wanted. Police now had motive. They had inconsistencies. They had behavioral red flags. But they were still missing the smoking gun, literally. Then, a breakthrough. In late summer, Christy, the oldest daughter now recovering, began to speak again. She had survived a bullet to the chest and a stroke, but her memory was intact. At first, she was afraid, terrified of her mother, but in small sessions, slowly and painfully, she began to tell the truth. What she said would change everything. Christy, Mum, shot us. There it was, from the only eyewitness, from the child who had no reason to lie. Diane Downs was arrested on February 28, 1984, and charged with 1 count of murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. She pleaded not guilty. And then, things got even stranger. While out on bail awaiting trial, she became pregnant by another man, one she barely knew. Investigators and prosecutors were shocked, but they weren't surprised. To many, this was classic Diane Downs, manipulative, unpredictable, and always in control of her own narrative. Prosecutor. She wanted a replacement baby, someone she could keep, someone the state couldn't take from her. The press had a field day. One headline read, "Baby bump behind bars." But the trial was coming. And what would unfold in court would be one of the most explosive cases in Oregon's history. Over the decades, Diane Downs has continued to proclaim her innocence. She has filed for parole multiple times, and each time she has been denied. The parole boards call her delusional, unrepentant, and a danger to society. She has never admitted guilt, never apologized. Diane, I didn't shoot my kids. The real shooter is still out there, but no one believes her anymore. The public has seen enough. The courts have spoken. Her children have grown up. Her youngest daughter, born in prison, has also come forward. In a 2008 interview, she described feeling haunted by the legacy of a woman she never truly knew, but couldn't escape. Diane Downs remains incarcerated to this day, a woman whose name is now synonymous with maternal betrayal. The story of Diane Downs is not just about murder, it's about obsession, about manipulation, and about a mother who defied every instinct by turning her own children into targets. They were innocent, they were loved, and they were almost lost, but they survived her. Like and subscribe for more real crime stories, turn on notifications, because the next case might be even darker.